one of the worst deals of all time, assuming that the communist revolution is soon going to come and sweep all these Western European governments and Central European governments away anyway, so who cares what they agree to? During the negotiations, Leon Trotsky, a man who was also quoted earlier, a key figure in the Bolshevik government, is negotiating this deal. And Blucher writes in her diary in January 1918, quote, "The Brest-Litovsk negotiations seem likely to come to nothing, as Trotsky seems to be playing a double part, and people say he's only toying with the Central Powers to be better able to sow the seeds of sedition and rebellion amongst the West European peoples. They say that already the German prisoners have been set free in Russia, and that common soldiers are being placed in command over their former officers." She continues, quote, "There are many different opinions about Trotsky here, some calling him a dreamer and idealist, others abusing him as a bloodthirsty tyrant, whilst there is a whole class of admirers who declare him to be the greatest man since Christ lived upon the earth, and the prophet of a new religion, which is to regenerate mankind and create a new paradise after the deluge of the war. Who knows what part this man may be going to play in the future fates of Europe? Some 120 years ago, people were saying almost the same things of a certain unknown little officer who, out of the reign of terror and bloodshed, developed into the vampire emperor who almost succeeded in draining the blood of all Europe." End quote. She, of course, is referencing Napoleon, who grew out of the French Revolution. To people at the time period, that's what the revolution in Russia kind of resembled. And there are quite a few similarities that are pointed out by various historians between the French Revolution and the Napoleonic era and the era when the Bolsheviks take charge in Russia. Take, for example, one of the stipulations that the Bolsheviks were making during the peace negotiations at Brest-Litovsk. They wanted their troops to have the right during the negotiations to fraternize with the German and Austro-Hungarian soldiers on the other side of no man's land. Why did they want that? Because they felt that just like Napoleon's troops spreading the ideas, the intellectual contagion, the sedition of the French revolutionary ideas to the lands of the kings and czars and emperors in 18th and early 19th century Europe, the Bolsheviks assumed that their troops would do the same thing to the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians in early 20th century Europe. Combine that with the impact that the release of the secret treaty agreements was having, and the Russian government, the new Russian government, the idealistic, at least on the surface, new Russian government, was doing amazing damage to the Allied war effort by undercutting all the propaganda. And they had help, by the way. The other really idealistic power that was starting to have an impact on the world scene was across the Atlantic. It was the United States. And to the hard-bitten, cynical, Bismarckian, realpolitik Europe of that day, it would have been hard for them to decide who was more idealistic, the new Russian Bolshevik government or the American government of Woodrow Wilson. In a sense, though, it's hard to blame, Britain and France and these other European powers for the fact that they had gone into the war making agreements with each other and their allies for carving up this territory or exchanging that territory, because that was standard operating procedure when the war started and had been, forever. The 19th century is full of those kinds of conflicts. The problem is, in just a couple of years, things had changed. In so many ways, the First World War is the transitionary